Hi guys, it's Kim from Kim's Collectibles, and I'm back today with a very fun and interesting video about the glassware that I used in my wedding reception. So I got married in May, and it was a really special event. I mean, other than the fact that I got married, but I used a whole bunch of my glassware collection for all of the china for my reception. So we had just under 50 people, and I got to make place settings and set up a bunch of different tables, and I'll really get into it to show you guys the aesthetics and the plan, the tablescapes that I made for the event. But I wanted to walk you guys a bit through the whole process of from start to end, when I conceptualized everything all the way to the end when it actually happened and all the cleanup and everything. So I had a ton of help. I certainly could not have done it myself. I had a bunch of help from my husband's family, and especially from my own family, from tablescaping and spending hours on weekends just putting pieces together and see what looked really nice, all the way to packing it up into special boxes so that the setup was really easy on the day of, and the cleanup all the way at the end. So without further ado, I'd like to get into it and show you guys all the pictures and everything so you can see what it all looked like. On the day of, my dad, he really orchestrated the setup, but as you can see, he took a nice video to show me everything afterwards of what it looked like right before everything got started. So you can see how it all looked set up on the day of. Thanks, Dad! DIY element I want to talk to you guys about are the tablescapes. So if you all remember, if you go on my channel, you'll see a bunch of unboxing videos. One of my followers was so generous and so kind to me. She gave me her entire Depression Wear antique glassware collection, and it was about 13 boxes. So with all of those, I went through them and I guess inventoried them, and at some point, originally we were going to elope, but then we decided to have an actual wedding, and I was like, I always wanted to use my collection for a ceremony, or not the ceremony, I'm sorry, for the reception, but I wouldn't have had enough. But since she gave me what she gave me, I had enough to make place settings for everybody. We had the dinner plate, and then a wine glass, which a lot of them I used sherbet dishes, which they were originally champagne coupes anyways, and then water tumblers. So about 3 pieces went into each one of those place settings, and then for dessert we had dessert plates as well. Now, and then water pitchers and candlesticks. So just essentially, because she gave me what she did, I had enough that I was able to set everything up the way I wanted to. And the process, so all the way from unboxing, and then I look at what I had, I stacked things together, and my mom, she has been collecting tablecloths for me, and I looked at the colors and I matched them up, and you can see right here a rather less than ideal setup. This was when we were first tablescaping, so we used my kitchen in my parents' house, my dining room table, and just laid out a tablecloth, and then would start playing around with colors. I was originally going to just do multicolored whatever, but I was like setting things up, and my dad and my husband were all chiming in on how to rearrange things and which colors look good with what, and it actually worked out that I had the perfect amount of each color of glassware to make a setting for each table. It just really, it all came together. I'm very blessed that I had enough of everything. For instance, for a table for 10, I had 10 yellow dinner plates, and a table for 4, I had 4 pink dinner plates, and I had tablecloths that matched everything. Honestly, I'm the most blessed person, and I give all the glory to God for that, because it just worked out better than I could have imagined. It was absolutely spectacular. But you can see the process from the beginning through working it all out, trying different things, and ending up with where I ended up with that I was really happy with. So yeah, and then the green table is actually uranium glass, and you can see when I put a black light on it, it just looked really cool. So yeah, that was the first part of the DIY, was all the place settings for the reception. And then here are some detail photos of our tablescapes for the reception. So I had place settings for 30 adults. There were a bunch of kids. My nieces and nephews now that I married into the family. They're my nieces and nephews. They had a little kids section somewhere else because with all this glassware around, we just wanted to make sure that they were safe, that the glassware was safe. So we sat all of the adults in the main dining room, and as you can see, this was the main table here. It had 10 seats, and then we just really crammed everyone in as best as we could. And it actually worked out perfectly because I had 28 glass dinner plates, and then it was really special. Right before my wedding, my dad and I went antiquing to get plates for the sweetheart table, the bride and groom table. My favorite color is purple, so we went looking for purple plates, and we found them. They're really stunning. I think they're from probably the 80s, if I had to guess, by that purple hue. Something interesting, you can kind of somewhat date glassware based off of the color of it. There's very warm tones in the 1930s. You can see like a warm green, the warm pink, this amber yellow. But then this is a very cool purple and a very cool green, which will tell you that those are from later in the 20th century. So, as you can see here, this was my uranium glass table, and I did color coordinate all of the tablecloths. Now, this wasn't orchestrated on purpose. My mom had been winning eBay auctions for these tablecloths for me just to build my collection for years now. These are all vintage Williams-Sonoma 100% cotton tablecloths. You know, the ones that you go in the store and there'd be $200, but my mom got them for me off of eBay for much less. And it just so happened that each tablecloth had a glassware color that matched it. And this tablecloth is really special. You can see a little bit of it here. It's hand embroidered by my mom when she was a teenager, actually. So that was what we used for our sweetheart table. And here's the cobalt blue glassware, purple and green, pink. This here for the large table, this is where we sat grandparents, the pastor and his wife, and my friends. They ate off of amber and yellow Depression era glassware. And then up here you can see uranium glass. And yeah, so I think the pictures turned out beautiful. My sister-in-law Hannah just did absolutely wonderful with the colors, and she was really amazing. She was crawling all over everywhere, standing on chairs to get the best vantage point to get these photos. So I'm very grateful to her for that. And you can see our flowers that we went with. We went for a wildflower aesthetic. So something that you would just go outside and pick in the middle of summer, although this was in May, but just natural looking flowers. The next DIY element I wanted to talk about a little bit were the flowers. So we did the flowers ourselves. So up to this point you can see we did all the tablescaping ourselves. We decorated the barn for the ceremony ourselves. I just love DIY projects. I love to get creative and do things and see what all I can, make out of something. So for flowers, we went to Trader Joe's the day before the wedding, and I bought a whole bunch of flowers. Now, this whole idea of doing your own flowers from Trader Joe flowers, it is not new apparently, because my dad and I showed up at 8 a.m. As soon as they opened, we were there at like 7:55 sitting in the parking lot so that we'd make sure we got flowers. And I really thought that there wasn't going to be anyone else there. I was wrong. So we got married on a Saturday and we went to get the flowers Friday morning. And I swear every other woman had the same idea because it was competitive. We walked in there and there were at least 4 or 5 other brides looking for their flowers. A little beneficial for me was we wanted more of a wildflower aesthetic, so your chamomile or your daisies, the ones that I guess you would see out in a meadow. That's what we really wanted for our day. Now the roses, the peonies, all of the really fancy flowers, those were just gone. There was a lot of competition for those, but thankfully I was able to get everything that I wanted. And yeah, and then we took it home and I made my own wedding bouquet. I made the boutonnieres, and then I'll show those here, probably pop them up on the clip. For my bouquet, I went for blue hydrangeas and just some greenery and some daisies. well, I don't think they're called daisies. I don't actually know what they're called, but they're the ones with like the almost fuzzy petals. And then for the boutonnieres, I did a purple iris, and my dad, my husband, and my father-in-law all wore one. And then my mom and I did all the arrangements for the tables. I think we made, is it 6 or 8? I think we may have made 8 of those table arrangements with the daisies or the Gerber daisies, which are the big orange ones, and just a bunch of everything else that I thought looked really pretty together. So yeah, those were our centerpieces. I'm going to take you through the album. So my husband's sister, my brand new sister-in-law Hannah, was the photographer for our special day, and she did spectacular. So we went for a barn-themed, more of a rustic, family-style wedding aesthetic. And I'll just show you guys, we put together a wedding album of the photos that she got for us. She did so good. I've already told her a million times how wonderful of a photographer she is, but she really did spectacular. And I just walk you guys through our album so you can see some of our aesthetics, the vibes, and the tablescapes. But here we are. So I'll just start here. This is the barn where we had the ceremony. As you can see for the decorations, and now this is my DIY wedding, so we did decorate this ourselves. Anything that we found just laying around that had some charm or character, such as a Singer sewing machine bottom but with a lathe on top, or the hay bales because there's goats on the property, and then the tulle and the greenery, the Edison bulbs, which we got from Amazon. And then something interesting, all of these chairs we actually got off of Facebook Marketplace. They're just mixed matched vintage chairs. Some of them are really beautiful. This one has a wicker seat. They're all hardwood. Some of them had cloth cushions, but this was what it looked like at the end when it was all decorated. I thought it looked amazing, like it was out of a magazine or something. So as you can see here, that's what we went with for our ceremony. Here is our dessert table, which also featured a good bit of vintage or antique glassware. This is the cake. It was done by my new sister-in-law, Tirza. She is amazing. I mean, this was a whole family affair. My husband's brother helped clean out the barn. Another one of his brothers mowed the lawn and prepared the yard. One of his sisters was a photographer. Tirza, his sister, was our cake decorator. So it was just really amazing how everyone helped us out and all came together to make sure that everything was beautiful. And for what we did for dessert, Tirza made us this cake for us to cut into. You can see us serving it up there. And then for the rest, we wanted to do cheesecake. Everyone really loves cheesecake, so we did a toppings bar where you can see, was it apple, blackberry, lemon, blueberry, strawberry, and cherry filling. So my parents ordered 6 huge cheesecakes from Costco, and people could put whatever topping they wanted to. And these flowers came from a local Mennonite woman. My mother-in-law went and got them, I think, the day before the wedding. And it's interesting because part of this arrangement here, the vine, is actually a pea plant. So, you know, just a plant you'd find in your garden to make peas. I just thought that it made for the most beautiful arrangement along with the dahlias. And yeah, we had a lot of fun cutting into it, and dessert was great. The last DIY element, and I know it isn't glassware related, but I hope you all can forgive me, but it was my wedding dress. So I wanted something very vintage looking, and originally I found a couple online, but not quite what I wanted. But I went on eBay one day looking for, you know, those 1930s, 1940s candlelight liquid satin dresses. And I found one that was really beautiful. Now, it's not original from the 1930s or the 1940s, unfortunately. I do think it is 1980s does 40s or 80s does 30s, which was kind of, you know how trends repeat themselves and come back. But I think in the 80s there's a bit of a resurgence of that liquid satin. But I found one with a beautiful back that had like scalloped lace. And I'll show you plenty of pictures of the dress too. But so I ordered that off of eBay. I was really excited that I won the auction for it. And it arrived, and I tried it on, and I was like, I like it. It has good bones, but I wanted to change a couple things. So it did have, when you think of a 1980s dress, those big puff sleeves and the satin sleeves down here where it like cinches at the wrist. I was not the biggest fan, and I didn't want to be too hot, so I actually took those off. And then the bodice, it had so many appliques, which it looked stunning, but it just wasn't what I was going for, so I ended up seam ripping quite a few of those off of it. And then the bottom, it had lace, scalloped lace the whole way around. So the front is the satin, and then it had lace at the bottom, so I took all that off too because I didn't want to look like a tablecloth. And I sewed new sleeves on out of a veil, so I bought a couple veils to see what I would like, and the one, I got them off of Amazon pretty cheap, so I didn't mind cutting it up and reusing it, so I cut up the one and I sewed the sleeves on myself. It was actually funny because I was looking for ideas for what I could do with it, and I went to a dress shop with my best friend Noelle, and we talked to the seamstress, and I was looking at dresses and things, and there wasn't enough time at that point for her to provide any services, so she just gave a couple recommendations, and then I watched a YouTube video and I gave it a go. And I sewed some elastic around the arm and around the wrist, and they really turned out nice. And yeah, you can see I put a lot of work into my dress, but I'm really proud of it. So at this point, we DIY'd the flowers, this reception, the barn for the ceremony, all that glassware, and my dress. So just about everything, I think, was a DIY project, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. Thank you all for joining me on this video today. I'm really excited and happy to be able to talk about everything that I did for my wedding, particularly all the glassware that went into it. So if you want to know anything more about anything that I did or anything that you saw, please comment below. But thank you all for sticking with me and enjoying this video, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.